But the truth is, we all have stories and probably multiple stories. I know I have more in me, more to share. And by sharing our stories, maybe somebody hears something in a different way or at a different time, and they get a different meaning from it. And that's really, truly powerful. And by sharing your story and my story and their story, then people are empowered to share their stories.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Authors on Mission podcast. So, what if I told you that the very system designed to heal others is actually breaking the healers themselves? Today's guest discovered this truth in the most startling way, collapsing in her own dental office from internal bleeding. But the story gets interesting because instead of just treating the symptoms, she dove deep into ancient wisdom and emerged with a revolutionary approach that's now helping healthcare providers transform burnout into what she calls bliss. Our guest today is Roberta Garceau, a practicing dentist who refused to accept that burnout was just part of the job. Instead, she became a certified yoga. And Roberta, I'm going to ask you to jump in here. How do we pronounce?
Ayurveda.
Thank you. She's an
Yes.
Ayurveda. And she has a Amazon #1 bestseller, Bliss Not Burnout, Hope for Healthcare Providers. Roberta, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It is a joy to talk about wellness and healthcare and bliss. So, I will say the subtitle of the book is Hope for Healthcare Providers. And a lot of the research and surveys and interviews are with healthcare providers, with the caveat that we're all healthcare providers because at some point in time, pretty much all of us are in the role of caring for a parent, a partner, a child, or a friend. And so those dynamics, while we see them a lot in healthcare, they're actually universal as well.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. I love that. I think that's very profound and beautiful because you're right. I mean, we are all healthcare providers in one way or another. And that's really funny because one of the questions I was going to ask you is about your diverse career path, from dentist to yoga instructor to author. But based on that mentality, I guess in a way, your career path isn't that diverse because it's under the same umbrella of healthcare provider.
Yes. And so it's kind of been an interesting journey. I started out in dentistry, and originally I became interested in yoga as a way to protect my back. I'm the youngest of multiple siblings, a large family, and I was concerned about the career of dentistry, like kind of leaning over people all the time, that I needed to have a strong core to protect my back. So in my mind, yoga would help with that. And so I dipped my toes into yoga for the physical benefits. And I didn't have a very strong practice for a very long time. But over time, I was called to become a yoga instructor. And what I found was that, you know, just practicing when my children were young, and I would practice in the basement, in the dark depths of the basement early in the morning before the kids got up. I found that one day I just felt like this is the best massage I've ever given myself or I've ever had. And the amazing thing was that I had given it to myself, right?
Mhm.
And so the physical benefits were wonderful. And then I started noticing the mental effects, feeling more calm, more centered, more grounded, able to focus better. And I said, oh, there is a whole lot to this. So it gravitated to my personal life. I became a certified yoga instructor and Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga, and it's thousands of year old medicine. So we're all familiar with holistic and integrative medicine these days, right? Whether it's herbalism or Chinese medicine or acupuncture. So Ayurveda is another alternative or really original, traditional way of approaching healthcare. And the beautiful thing is when we can combine all these modalities and get the best of all the worlds. So for me, they were completely complementary. My goals with yoga were exactly the same goals that I had with dentistry, which was to help others improve their health, function, self-esteem, and overall well-being. Um, Identical. So that was pretty amazing.
Thank you for the very comprehensive overview of that, and thank you also for the information about Ayurveda. I think that, yeah, obviously I wasn't sure how to pronounce it, so I'm not too familiar with it, but I think that
Mhm.
wonderful about podcasts is you always get to learn something new, and it's great that you were able to find something that helped you and now helps so many others because of your book and your work. So it's great.
Thank you.
So transitioning a little bit into the book itself, first I'm wondering, do you happen to have a copy of the book with you today?
I just happen to have, yes.
Oh,
So Bliss
cool.
Not Burnout. Yeah. Here she is. And it was a long time coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to know that, first off, it's a very beautiful cover, and I think that, it's very eye-catching too, and so well suited to have just like a little tea light candle, and it's exactly the kind of peace I would hope it brings us. So it's a very thought out design. Did you develop the cover yourself, or did you have a little bit of assistance?
I had help with it, but I definitely it was my visualization of having something peaceful. And a flame, a candle can be both peaceful or it can burn out.
Mm.
Right? So it's really both ends of the spectrum of what my book is about. And when I talk about, moving towards bliss and away from burnout, I don't literally think that we're all going to transcend and, be just happy every moment of every day. Because that's not real. And that isn't truly the goal. And the goal is to move a step closer to bliss, right? Because who doesn't want to be healthier and happier and more joyful, as opposed to burning that candle at the both ends, right? So sometimes it feels like it's burning at both ends and the middle, and it's just really, really hot and it's not sustainable. So the point of Bliss Not Burnout truly is to increase your self-awareness so that you can understand your own tendencies and understand also where you might tend to, you know, go off the tracks or off the rails a little bit so that you can recognize it sooner. Like myself, I know that I can tend to get impatient or frustrated easily. That's part of my makeup. It's part of my temperament. It doesn't make me good or bad or right or wrong. It just means like, okay, that's not going to serve me the best if I, don't manage that. So I'm able, because I'm aware of that, I can catch it a little bit sooner and say, oh, that's what that is. Here we go. Okay, let's, maybe turn up the air conditioning or take off a layer of clothing, or if I'm outdoors, get in the shade, have a glass of water, just kind of cool down a little bit. And sometimes take a little walk, right? We can all take a mini break by going to the restroom, no matter where we are. Most of the time, people will not follow us there. So we can get a little respite just going to the bathroom and breathing.
Right, yeah. Thank you for that. And I'm glad that, all this does tie into the design work of the cover itself. And it also gives a little bit of a sneak peek to what we can expect to see in the book. Speaking of, more the inside content of it, you do discuss in chapter 2, for example, moving beyond traditional work-life balance to something a little more dynamic. I'm wondering if you want to shine a little bit of light on that. You discussed a concept using an analogy of a mobile. So I'm wondering if you'd like to.
Yeah. I would love to talk about that. So when we think of balance in terms of a scale, like the attorney scale, where
Mhm.
if you put weight on one side, then the other side's going to, go down or go up, and that it's a zero sum, right? Like if something goes up, something goes down.
Right,
And
so
that's
there's
not
also, but there's only like two parts to it. So
exactly, just only two parts. And in economics, we call that zero sum, right? If something goes up, something else must go down. In life, it's really not like that. That's a
mm,
bit too simplistic. So dynamic balance is more like a mobile where There are multiple moving parts and pieces to all of our lives in any moment. And if, say, for instance, work is pulling you on this part, it's hanging off of the mobile, and the work part of life is pulling you and tugging at you and requiring more of your time and energy, it's going to take away not only from your it's time to take care of yourself, right? Your self-care, but it could also impact your relationships. It can impact your ability to exercise or to eat properly. It can impact your ability to engage in your other hobbies, your relationships with your friends, your relationships with your extended family. And so, in a dynamic model of balance, any shift in one part of the system can affect the other part of the system. It may not be equal and opposite, but it affects everything. And you can see that in a family or even in a work family. Let's take a work family. If you have one person in a team who's not pulling their weight or who's bringing drama or who's adding tension, it affects the whole team. Maybe not everybody equally, but it'll affect all of the parts, even though it's just that one piece that's altered. I don't know if that helps a little bit.
Yeah, no, I like that, and it's a really beautiful way of thinking about it too, and much more accurate to what every life is really like. So, very
And so that
cool.
it's not like you're going to set it and forget it with life balance.
Mhm.
It's not like, okay, we've got this like perfect flat line, and when you're flat line, you're dead. So that's not the goal. So it's not like you're going to set it and forget it. The fact of the matter is that life continuously throws things at you, challenges, and gosh, growth opportunities. And so we need to continually adjust all areas of our life.
Understood. Yeah, and you know what's interesting is one thing you mentioned there is flatlining, kind of relating it back to the healthcare field there, which is also interesting because your book does open with a line, somebody call 911, healthcare is in crisis and it's rampant. So it's funny that you kind of still tie in your career and that into the book itself. I guess based on that, why did you choose such a dramatic opening? Was that intentional?
It was absolutely intentional. First of all, I want to get people's attention. And the truth is, I have started and stopped writing this book about 3 times over the course of at least 5 years. And the third time I wrote it was after COVID. And, healthcare providers have always had a lot of demands on them. But after the pandemic, it was crazy. It just people were shorthanded. They didn't have the materials and supplies they needed. They were being asked to do things that they had never trained for before. And it was it was traumatic for a lot of people. And not just the direct healthcare providers, the clinical healthcare providers. What was interesting to me in my research is that it also affected people who answered the phone. Like they were dealing with people's trauma kind of in a secondhand way. And people who filed medical claims, just reading through people's medical histories and what they were going through, for some of these folks, they found it very traumatic just to read that. And so it truly is like our healthcare system in this country, it's got some problems. Our healthcare system is not healthy right now. And so this is really a call to wake up. Number one, we've got to take care of ourselves. And that's not selfish. It's kind of seems opposite day, right? We signed up to care for other people and we need to care for ourselves first because if we don't, there's no us to give to anybody, right? It's just not sustainable. And that was really a lesson that maybe I knew it cognitively, but I learned it in my body very acutely when I became sick. And that I do include that story in Bliss Not Burnout of how I just had stopped communicating. I had stopped asking for help. I had stopped taking care of myself. And I put everybody else before me, my family, my patients, my team. And it didn't work out so well. I ended up needing emergency surgery, right? So that's not a good plan. So I share this because I do have a lot of learning, not just in dentistry or in Western medicine or allopathic medicine, as we call it, not just in yoga and breathing and meditation and mindfulness and traditional medicine of Ayurveda, but also in breathing and sleep medicine, airway control and helping people to sleep and have better life quality. And then there's the life experiences. So I bring all of that together. And my goal is just like, hey, if you can take one thing away, just one thing away from Bliss Not Burnout, then I'm so happy. If I can help you to live with greater wellness, then my whole purpose for being on the earth has been achieved.
I thank you for that, and I'm really sorry to hear about the experiences you went through. But again, it's all about the meaning behind it that you've brought in the form of a book. It's always interesting because as a ghostwriter and editor myself, I tell people all the time you do have a story to tell, and especially with yours, it's not only empowering to yourself but to others as well. That being said, though, regarding the writing process, you did mention that you started and stopped the books 3 times. So I'm wondering, what exactly was that holding you back? What made it so challenging in the starting?
Yeah. So as for people who are writers or authors or would-be authors, there can definitely be that imposter syndrome. And so
Mm,
there was a part of like, oh, who am I to write a book? I wasn't an author before, right? And who's going to want to read what I have to write? Sometimes we can feel like, oh, other people have had similar stories, or other people have had more interesting stories or more dramatic stories. My story's not that special. But the truth is, we all have stories, and probably multiple stories. I know I have more in me, more to share. And by sharing our stories, maybe somebody hears something in a different way or at a different time, and they get a different meaning from it. And that's really, truly powerful. And by sharing your story and my story and their story, then people are empowered for more people to share their stories. Not just so that we're all blabbing, but because it's the communication that was lacking when I got sick, right? When we communicate, when we tell each other our stories, when we share them and compassionately, then we're normalizing behavior and we're supporting each other and we're nurturing each other. And that's truly the point. That's the powerful piece.
understood. Yeah, it's very everything you said. I keep saying beautiful, but it's so accurate because um, it just first off, hearing you talk is peaceful in itself. It's very calming, and it just gives you like a good sense of mind. But everything you just said is very powerful too. So thank you for that, and for the authors out there, it's also very meaningful to hear. But that being said, I mean, you really do balance your vulnerability really well in this book. I'm sure first off it's a struggle to do so and be so personal, but you also make it very credible, and you add in professionalism too. So, how exactly do you balance that in your writing and in choosing the stories to include, for example, that balance between vulnerability and credibility?
Yeah. So I'm a very open person. I'm
Mhm.
very authentic person. That's one of my main words. And so the challenge for me was figuring out, yes, how much to share, because sometimes your story can also be somebody else's story. So some things are not always yours to share, right? If someone else doesn't want you to share them, if there's not a way that you can safely share a story that impacts you, but it also involves somebody else, then there's a responsibility to protect that person's privacy and their wishes as well. I included the story I included, and I also included other people's stories because I didn't want it just to be about me. I thought it would be powerful and empowering to share multiple different stories. Um, but the reason that I chose the story that I did share is because it is vulnerable. And what I learned as a leader, as a leader in my dental office, is I used to think, oh, I had to look like I had it together all the time. Right? Needed to look like I wasn't making mistakes and that I had my game on all the time, 100%. And what I learned through coaching and experience is that um, strong leaders can show vulnerability, and that makes you more approachable and makes you more real and authentic and relatable. And so I share this story because it is very vulnerable. Um, and I want people to know that what my mistakes were. and how I learned. And that even if your life and your story is completely different, the other message is that there is always a gift in adversity,
Mm.
always a gift in adversity, if we choose to see it and receive it, right? So I could not believe that I would need emergency surgery for no reason, that there couldn't be something positive that would come out of it. And so I took it as an opportunity to really do a good reflection on all parts of my life, like all those moving pieces of the mobile. And, how was my work life? How was my relationship with my children? How was my relationship with my family and my employees and my patients and myself and my spouse and my friends? And I looked around at all those parts and pieces and I was like, hmm, how was my health? If I did die, I know that sounds kind of morbid, but that's really the point, right? If I had died, which could have happened, would I have been okay with my life up to that point? And so that's the opportunity to look at all the moving parts and pieces of your mobile and see, what needs a little more tending to? It's kind of like looking at a garden, right? Like which which plants are thriving and doing well, and which ones need a little more, fertilizer or nutrition or sunlight or water? Which ones need a little more love? Right?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And yeah, I think you made some really good points there, especially about being vulnerable in your stories. Because you're right, I tell my clients all the time, you can't just talk about your successes and what's going great. You need to relate to your readers, tell them what you went through, and it adds that credibility and also hooks them in. So all beautiful stuff there that you just mentioned. Now I'm wondering, you have this book out, it's gotten amazing feedback. What's next on the agenda? I have a feeling you're probably not done with the writing world. Do you have any ideas for upcoming books?
So much. So on the regular, I do share newsletters twice a month. So if you want to join my mailing list, you can go to my author page, which is drrobertagarceau.com. Or you can just Google up Bliss Not Burnout and it can take you there. You can find out all ways to get in touch with me, and just sign up for my newsletters. That will tell you everything that's going on. Like I'm teaching a yoga and wellness class later this month. I'll be doing a webinar in September. I'll be doing other speaking arrangements. I will be offering wellness retreats and masterminds. So I'm very excited about that. So that's the best way to stay in touch with me is get a copy of Bliss Not Burnout. And then also, which you can get on my author site or on Amazon, and also just follow along. So I'm writing on the regular, and these are nothing, it's just informational and inspirational. So I may include a stretch, I may include a breathing technique or a meditation or a mindfulness or just a gentle reminder of how to take care of ourselves better, right? Outside of that, yes, there may be a Bliss 2 coming. And I'm not sure if that will be in 2026 or 2027, but definitely more to come. Yeah.
I love
Heard
that.
the
That's
last.
exciting too. So yeah, if people want to stay up to date, then what's the best way to get in touch with you if they're interested in any of these programs they just described?
So definitely going to the author website at drrobertagarceau.com or just Googling up Bliss Not Burnout. That should also take you to the sign up page for the newsletters and give you all my contact information, or grab a copy of Bliss Not Burnout on Amazon or my author page.
I love it. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna put the links to in the description box of the podcast today, so everybody can go ahead and click on over as soon as we're finished and get immersed in the world of Dr. Roberta Garceau. All that being said, though, I mean, first off, this has been a very inspiring, transformational story that you've shared with us today. I think it's just great to know that people can go from a moment of collapse to being able to be a beacon of hope for people everywhere. So amazing stuff. But so for listeners who are really resonating with your message, what other tips might you have to offer them as we begin to wrap up today? What's something that they should hold on to and take on with them after the show ends?
Yeah, so the number one best self-care tip I can give you is to ask yourself. You can even put a reminder in your phone, like a little, alarm to go on multiple times throughout the day. What do I need right now? WDINRN. What do I need right now? And then answer that, right? Do you need a drink of water? Do you need a nap? Do you need something nourishing? Do you need to just, ease your mind, maybe go walk outside in nature for a few minutes, and honor that because it can be daunting. Like, I am too busy. I am too stressed to take care of myself. I can't, go get a professional massage for an hour, and I can't afford to get a pedicure, or I can't do this or that, or I don't have a fancy gym membership. No, that's not what it's about. It's just what you taking little moments, breathing while you're sitting at a red light, breathing while you're waiting online, just breathing in and out through your nose, counting in for 5 seconds and out for 5 seconds. Just that beautiful, simple breath that you can do at any time, any place, and it's absolutely free. Like things like that. There's all sorts of tips like that in Bliss Not Burnout for simple mindfulness things that you can do to regulate yourself and care for yourself.
I love that. Thank you for that. I think that's definitely something everybody could take home with them today. So thank you. This has been a great conversation. It's been amazing to meet you and to learn about your story. And I think everyone here learned a ton. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle. I appreciate it.
Of
Hope you
course.
have a little more bliss.
Of course. Well, there you have it, everybody. Sometimes the universe has to knock us flat on our backs to get a good look and see the stars of what could be out there for us. So I think this story is just a great message to show that our greatest challenges can contain our greatest gifts. So if you're a healthcare provider listening to this, which as we know means anybody out there,
Exactly.
make sure that you click on the links, check out Bliss Not Burnout wherever books are sold, and dive deeper into her elemental wellness approach. Click on the links in the description box. Until next time, keep pushing your boundaries, keep challenging the status quo, and remember that your mission as an author, as a leader, and as a human being is far from over. We'll see you next time, everybody. That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or a leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.